Good morning, Blululus. How you doing? After everything we've seen in the last 9 months, I cannot understand for the life of me how there are still people out there who believe that the Joker asked for our consent to exert this plenary dominance over our entire nation. Like, come on! You can't possibly believe that. Just yesterday, a report came out of the state of Maine that said that a woman received an Amazon package, and when she opened it, inside was a bunch of tally sheets. The ones from November. Now, somebody from the Board of Contests in the state of Maine came out and gave a statement about it. They're like, we're gonna get to the bottom of this, but don't worry, we're still absolutely certain that everything was free, everything was fair, and it worked out just fine because there's checks and balances within our contest system that make it so that we know that everything's legit. How could you say that? Clearly, whatever checks and balances and chain of command that you think went well didn't. Otherwise, that woman wouldn't have that box. Where are the rest of them? Where did they come from? If that system was working properly, then those tickets would have been wherever the heck you store them and hide them in a bunker somewhere, and they're not. So how can you say that you're just so confident that everything went so well? You're just not supposed to say anything else. You don't actually believe that. You just don't want to look crazy. But they don't have that issue. The people over there on that side do not experience that. We're the only ones that are trying to hold on to some semblance of decorum, and it is to our very peril. Wake up! If there's boxes of tickets just being delivered to someone's house in Maine, like, there's other things afoot here, and we should be allowed to say that without fear of somebody putting us in a padded room. Come on. Echo Tango Alpha came out with some information that they found out of the state of Minnesota, and it's consistent with everything else that they've ever seen, with the exception of the fact that some parts of Minnesota do count their tickets by hand, while other ones are tabulated digitally. Therefore, when they did the sampling of that state, they had a control group. They have a group that was counted normally and a group that was counted digitally. And so, but this is the same group of people in the same place at the same time. So they should have been relatively similar. Of course, they're not. The ones that were counted digitally showed the same algorithmic differences as we have seen in other places, where the ones that were counted by hand do not have that same amount of differences. They had a control group. And that means they have an experimental group, and the experimental group showed differences from the control group, meaning that something happened there. That's just how science works. That's how math works. It's not a matter of whether or not you think it's crazy. It's true. So stop pretending. And while we're done pretending, let's stop pretending like we're not in a civil conflict. The Joker is sicking the military on our American cities, and he's talking about using the Insurrection Act of 1807 to do even more, not just National Guardsmen, but entire active duty military, and having them conduct law enforcement-like activities on every blue state in the country. How is that not civil conflict? I'm waiting. And that's against the Constitution. The whole reason why that law is in place is to prevent insurrection. And he's using the Insurrection Act to effectively usurp the independent governments of these individual states, which is anti-federalist and in itself an insurrection. That's worthy of throwing peaches. All of the things that he does every single day are worthy of throwing peaches. He just said yesterday that he wants to throw J.B. Pritzker and the mayor of Chicago in prison because they don't want him there. Like, peaches, y'all, peaches. And yet still, there are so many lawmakers who are not talking about it. They're like, yeah, well, if everything goes great next November, we're just gonna put the brakes on him for the next 2 years. You're gonna leave him in there? I'm sorry, it sounded like you were going to leave him in there for the rest of the time if we bother to go out and at least attempt to put our people in that spot next time. You're gonna leave him there? Be so fluffin' for real. I mean, who knows? Maybe they just know that he's not going to make it for the next 4 years. It sounds like the Joker does, because he came out again yesterday and said, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to getting into heaven, and maybe if I can strike peace deal, then I'm going to be let in. That's not how it works. It's not how any of this works, boo. And additionally, KK Caroline issued a statement that said that the Joker is going in tomorrow for his annual checkup at Walter Reed, but of course he already had that. He had his annual checkup back in April. He's had several checkups since then. That's how we found out about the cankles. And so saying that it's just for an annual checkup is clearly a lie. There's something going on with him, both up here and everywhere. Oh, they're just pretending like he's in perfect health. We know that that's not the case. We know that that's not the case. Has he even been golfing in the last couple weeks? Have we seen him out there? Because Cuckoo Banana Pants Crazy in the Noodle is like drunk texting on Truth Social. It came out yesterday that it was confirmed that the message that he sent to Spam Blondie about James Comey was intended to be a DM on Truth Social, which is a huge deal. Like, I remember hearing Obama and Wonder Woman talking about the fact that they weren't even allowed to have cell phones. Like, they couldn't text, they couldn't send messages, they had to have these very secure, specific kinds of phones that they were only allowed to use with like other members, because Truth Social is probably not very secure. And so if he's talking about like serious government things with his cabinet on Truth Social, like, that's violating all sorts of intelligence rules. And if they could get into our system by way of Truth Social, then they could hack our entire system and take us all down. And they're just doing it anyways. It's so bad that even Curtis Yarvin is like, nah, I'm good. I think that this plan might have been ill thought. Maybe I should leave. And when the rats start fleeing the ship, girl, it's sinking. Just consider again for 1 second, if somebody who was best friends with one of the biggest child bad people in the entire world, who was also associated with the intelligence agencies of several different governments, and is a fraudster, and is a cheater, and is a liar, and was bankrupted a billion times, who is also trying to start a civil conflict in our own country over the fact that people don't like him, do you really think that he's incapable of moving a few numbers around with the assistance of the richest computer programmer in the entire world? Do you really think that? And if you do, why? Like, just tell me why for 1 minute. And if you don't, and you're still riding on the Blululu train with me, thank you. I appreciate you being here. I hope you take care of yourself. So you drink some coffee, you'll be eating, you'll be snacking as always. Keep your eyes up, keep your feet on the ground. See you next time. Ta-ta.